بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وأتباعه أجمعين. We have reached the chapter of the root word, or the chapter of the unrestricted object. Both of these are correct, but it's more, to use a more precise name, it would be the unrestricted object, because the root word can be an unrestricted object or not be an restricted object. But the author calls it the root word in this book. Because it's a beginner's book, and for a beginner, this small difference, is is not going to make them learn any less. So I will go ahead and share my screen. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, brother.
Okay. Okay, the author says, المصدر هو الاسم المنصوب الذي يجيء ثالثا في تصريف الفعل، نحو ضرب يضرب ضربا، وهو قسمان لفظي ومعنوي، فإن وافق لفظه لفظ فعله فهو لفظي، نحو قتلته قتلا، وإن وافق معنى فعله دون لفظه فهو معنوي، نحو جلست قعودا وقمت وقوفا وما أشبه ذلك. So the translation, the root word, meaning the unrestricted object, is the mansub noun that comes third in the verb conjugation, such as he hit, he will hit, and hitting. So in Arabic, whenever you conjugate a word, you mention all of these. You mention the past tense, you mention the imperfect tense, meaning past, present, future, and you also mentioned the imperative, but the author did not mention the imperative here. And then at the end, you mentioned the root word of that verb. Right? You mentioned the root word of that verb. So what happens is, for example, for hitting, you say daraba, which is past tense, yadribu, which is imperfect or present future tense, and then at the end you would say darban. Darban is the root word, and this is how you if you look at the books of Arabic, this is how they conjugate a verb. So he's telling us that the masdar, or the unrestricted object, or the root word, word is what comes last in the verb conjugation. So it's not a definition. It's just one of the characteristics, or one of the places you will see this type of word, which is a root word, or an unrestricted object. Now again, the root word can be an unrestricted object, and it also may not be. So now he's going to start telling us about the different types of, not necessarily the root word, but the unrestricted object. So the unrestricted object is just another object, but is not restricted with anything. Meaning, for example, when you say maf'ulu bihi, that's an object, but that bihi part means that it restricts it. Inshallah, we'll go over the meanings of these different parts. For example, maf'ulu bihi, lahu, ma'ahu, the last part, like lahu bihi ma'ahu. But see, the last parts of these objects restrict them, make them limited. For example, I'll give you a quick example. For example, you say the green book, right? The green book, is the book here being restricted by something, or is it not? That's my question too.
I don't think so.
So not the green book. I'm saying, is the book itself, is it being limited by something? Is it being specified?
It's restricted by
I mean,
yeah, by color, right? It's being restricted. Yeah, it's being restricted by color, by green. It's green. And if I say red books, again, it's being restricted by color. If I say the big book, or the good book, these are all things that are attributes of the book, but at the same time they limit it. They limit the book itself. But if I just say book, it could be any book, right? I'm not limiting it to any type of book. It encompasses all books. So it's book without anything attached, without any attributes or adjectives, that's unrestricted. If I attach anything to it, it becomes restricted, right? So here, when you say the unrestricted object, it basically, that's what it means. There's nothing that you're mentioning after it that would restrict it. For example, if I say maf'ulu ma'ahu, the object with which the verb, what the action was performed. So you see, like, the object with which the verb action was performed, with which the action was performed, is limiting this object. So it's not an open and free object. So here, when we say al-maf'ul mutlaq, meaning the unrestricted object, it means we don't have anything like that restricting it. So I just wanted to give you a bit of background regarding the name of this object. وهو قسمان لفظي ومعنوي. It is of two types, explicit and implicit. فإن وافق لفظه لفظ فعله فهو لفظي. نحو قتلته قتلا. If the word used for the unrestricted object matches the word, meaning, let me change this to matches. So if the word used for the unrestricted object matches the verb's word, then it is explicit. Such as, the example here is قتلته قتلا. I killed him a killing, or ضربته ضربا, I beat him a beating. Now, you may, I think I gave this an example before. For example, a lot of times, have you guys heard people say, I gave him a beating, meaning I beat him really bad. That's what they mean. I gave him a beating. They're using the root word beating. So here, the same concept applies. When you say I beat him a beating, it means you gave him a really bad beating, right? I know it's an example, it's a violent example, but you get I hope you get the idea though, right? You understand what's being said. So a beating. So when you say I killed him a killing or I beat him a beating, that beating part is the unrestricted verb, and it puts emphasis on the beating itself. Now, but if you pay attention to the words, it's to the words used for the verb and the unrestricted object, they are the same word essentially, right? I beat him a beating. They both come from beat, right? So that is when the unrestricted object becomes an explicit unrestricted object, because it is basically the words match. So there is nothing, it's not just about the meaning, but both the word and the meaning match. Any questions?
No, brother.
Does that make sense? Or is it unclear?
It makes sense.
Okay. So that is the root word. And for example, in the Quran, I believe this is a good example that will make it. Okay. So in the Quran, there is an example. Allah Azza wa Jalla says, "Man amila salihan min dhakarin aw untha wa huwa mu'minun falanuhyiyannahu hayatan tayyiba." Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us from these people. Yes, so let me actually add a new slide here for this Quranic verse. Oh, come on. It's very slow. Okay. Whoever does a good deed whether they're male or female, and they're believers, we will make them live. We will make them live a good life. We will make them live a good life. Hayatan here is the unrestricted word or the root word. Okay, so this is just an example from the Quran. There are a bunch of these in the Quran. In case when you're reading the Quran, pay attention and you'll find many, inshallah. Okay, now moving on. The second type of unrestricted object is the implicit. And basically, the implicit unrestricted object is the object which has a meaning that agrees with the verb, but the word itself does not match the word of the verb. So the author says, and if the meaning matches the meaning of the verb, right? The meaning of the root word matches the meaning of the verb, but not the word, then it is implicit, such as I sat is sitting. So in English, it was hard for me to translate it because I had to use the same word essentially. But in Arabic, we have two words for sitting. You have julus and qu'ud, right? And in this example, we are saying jalastu qu'udan. I sat is sitting. The meanings are the same, but are the words the same? Do the words?
No.
They don't match, right? So this becomes, I'm sorry, go ahead.
It doesn't match, rather. That's what I was saying.
Yeah, it doesn't, exactly. So this becomes an implicit unrestricted object. This becomes an implicit unrestricted object. The same concept here. For standing, there are two words in Arabic, qama and al-qiyam wal-wuquf, right? So here we have qumtu wuqufan. I stood standing. The meaning is the same, but the words are not the same. They don't match. Therefore, this also becomes an implicit, unrestricted object. And an example in English would be like I hit him a beating, right? I hit him a beating. Hitting and beating is essentially the same meaning. It has the same meaning, right? So, they could mean the same thing. So here I'm using two different words for the same meaning. I hit him a beating. So then this becomes an implicit unrestricted object. And again, in English, we don't speak that way, but I'm just translating it word by word so you guys know what it means word by word. But I'm not even sure whether in English we have an exact translation that would make sense, to be honest with you. The closest I could think of was I gave him a beating. But that is only used for beating, right? I've never heard someone say I give him a living. Maybe. Anyhow, I'll search this more to see. But as far as in Arabic, you use the unrestricted object and you put it at the end of a verb. After a verb to put emphasis on that verb, the fact that that verb was performed. And it has other benefits as well, but inshallah we'll talk about those other benefits in the more advanced books. This was the chapter of the unrestricted object, or as the author calls it, the root word. Do you guys have any questions?
No, brother. Not for me.
Okay. If no one has any questions, especially because it's late in Bangladesh, we can call it a day, and we will discuss this over the WhatsApp channel. We'll discuss the timing over the WhatsApp channel, whether we want to change the timing or not. Okay. جزاكم الله خيرا for joining. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.